Welcome, everyone, to our free training tonight, Secrets of the Super Successful. I'm Chris Atley, and I am really excited and honored to have Denis Nurmela on today as our guest. And this is the first time I've actually done this where I'm doing more of an interview style, having a guest on, and I am just thrilled that Denis is our first person and probably the first of many. So looking forward to sharing some tips with everyone here on the secrets of the super successful. And I'm going to read a little bit more here about Denis, and then I'll let him introduce himself as well. And so just bear with me for a second here. Okay, so Denis is a business consultant and coach who has real-world experience, and as an entrepreneur for over 20 years, he has built nonprofit and for-profit corporations, both shareholder and privately held, from ground level to multi-million-dollar organizations. Denis has served on many advisory councils, including on a congressional advisory board for the National Emergency Alert System in Washington, D.C. Wow, that's amazing. And during his peak performance years, he still found time to read 8 to 10 business or self-improvement books per month. So that is amazing, and I can't wait to get more into that as well as we get going through the call here. And before we dive right in, actually, I just want to let everyone know that the call will be an hour, give or take, and at the end, we will open up the line for Q&A if people have questions and if there's time. So welcome, Denis. Are you on the line here? Can you hear me okay?
I am, yeah. I'm glad to appreciate the nice introduction. Of course, it was all made up, I'm sure, but you
I forgot to add in that you have, I was just going to say, I forgot to add in that you have an awesome sense of humor. Whenever we talk, we're always laughing, which I just love. And you're just a real down-to-earth human being, which I also love. So welcome and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here, and I hope we have an opportunity to kind of share some of the stuff that everybody thinks is so confusing and complicated that really isn't. You know, it's just a matter of having a better understanding of things and then making things work. So I'm excited to be here and share some information with you guys. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. Great. So before we get into, what makes a successful person and about some of your successes with building seven-figure businesses, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into business to begin with?
Sure, absolutely. When I was 9 years old, I must have been bored already with life. So I started my first business at age 9, which is a nonprofit. And I have always, ever since then, had at least a side business, even when I've had a job, like every other regular person out there along the way. And yes, I have built some companies, reached the multi-million-dollar levels of annual success, and I've also crashed some businesses to the ground at raging speeds. And most of the time, we've come in for a fairly safe landing, which is a really learning experience. You gain a lot from those difficult times. I've had mostly either high-tech companies or medical companies in the larger businesses, that is. When I was 9, it wasn't one of those. But, along the way, I've had all kinds of different businesses. But now, it's kind of grown. Now that I'm getting a little bit older, I started thinking about, what could I actually do good in the world when I have a walker? And being a CEO of a company isn't that thing I can do. And I realized that it wasn't business that I really was in love with. It was the art of creation. And to take an idea and build it up into something that's living its own life and then, selling it or doing whatever with it is really what I loved. And I found that I got that from teaching others. So I started coaching and consulting. I still actually teach part-time some business courses at a college, seminars. I wrote a book called The Saturday Morning CEO. That's all about how to have a personal strategic planning meeting with yourself once a week. And then it's grown into a nonprofit, the Saturday Morning Foundation. And our mission statement is that we help to educate and inspire entrepreneurs and business people to grow their local economy by growing their business. And we do so two ways. We have radio and television shows on Verizon Fios and Time Warner Cable and some satellite radio and AM stations and all that stuff. We also, where my real passion is doing entrepreneurship seminars for youth, including at-risk youth. I help them find their passion, and I help them start a business. In fact, I'll probably tell you a story later on in the conversation that may bring some tears to your eyes, but it really kind of explains why I do what I do.
That's amazing. And I loved what you said about the art of creation. I've never heard it been phrased like that before. And that,
thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like you've always been creative with starting your first nonprofit when you were 9. Yes.
I have always wanted to do some crazy things. My wife has stuck with me. You know, we've just been married now for 25 years, so it's a good start. And but she's definitely been through some crazy times and some good times. So she knows my desire for change. I'm comfortable with change.
That's awesome. Now, what was your first business, out of curiosity?
I'm actually looking up at a frame of 9-year-old Denis Nurmela in my office with a wagon full of newspapers, bottles, and cans. And it was a ecology club that my brother and our neighbor and I started. And what we did is we collected, there's a local newspaper that did an article on us. That's what I'm looking at. And what they would do is the neighbors would give us their recyclable stuff. We'd go cash it in, and then we had a small administrative fee, you know, for our cookies and Kool-Aid for our big meetings. And then the rest of the money we would actually take, and if somebody had an old beat-up trash can or something, we'd buy them a new one. We did things to try to make our neighborhood look nicer. So we felt we were doing our part to kind of improve the community. So that was our first, my very first business, was that nonprofit.
I love it. That's awesome. And how cool is that you have a picture in your office too?
Oh, it's incredible. I look at that kid every once in a while, and he's just looking into the camera, and I feel like he's looking at me saying, hey, I had dreams when I was 9 years old. You better make them all come true.
It's in your hands.
It is. I'm accountable to a 9-year-old boy that's in a frame in my office.
I love it. That's good. I think we should all have a picture like that in our office.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll sell copies of it if you want one in your office.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I like
the
that.
entrepreneurial spirit.
That's perfect. So tell us about building your first 7-figure business. What type of business it was, and, you know, really how you made it happen.
Yeah, I'll tell you that the first one, and probably my most favorite of all, and this may throw some people for a loop here, but I'm gonna shake up people's thinking a little bit. My first and most favorite business that I had that was over 7 figures was a nonprofit. Actually, it was a human tissue bank. So I hired doctors and nurses and surgical folks and administrative folks who would go out when people would pass away, who wanted to donate their, bones and skin and all that. And we would go out and retrieve that surgically, sterilely, and send it to other companies that would then fashion bone into pins and screws that would be used instead of metal. The skin would be used for burn victims. Everything was all sterilized and processed and all that. But that was actually probably one of the most complicated businesses I had to start too, because we had federal, state, regional, industry related, what would you call them, vultures that will circle around and make sure that you are following every letter of the law. We had the HIPAA laws, and we had concerns of identity theft because people just passed away, and we have all their records and stuff. So, it was a pretty complicated company to start, actually.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
I loved it. We did good for people, and that's, I think, the secret to, a business being successful is you've got to really love what you're doing.
Yes. Everybody write that down.
Yes.
One of the secrets is doing what you love. I totally agree. Now,
don't start a business to make money only, because it will fail. Guarantee it.
And I want to hear a bit about those crashes too and what you learned from that. But before we get to that, I think it's interesting that your first 7-figure business was a nonprofit, because I think that's a common misconception that that there isn't money to be earned when you are building a nonprofit. Right.
Well, I can explain that a little bit. The main differences between a for-profit and nonprofit are that a for-profit company has owners. So excess money that doesn't need to be reused next year for research and development and all that stuff goes to the owners, and the owners can spend it at their discretion. A nonprofit, on the other hand, the difference is really structurally the board of directors has to have at least 51% of the people on the board who do not gain a significant income from that business. Whereas with a for-profit, it's kind of the opposite. The biggest shareholders are usually on the board. So the excess money doesn't exist in a nonprofit. So a nonprofit can bring in all kinds of funds, but it has to stay in the business. And now it could be paid out in bonuses to employees, and people can I made a very healthy 6-figure income when I was running that business. So you can make money, but that's obviously not the reason you start a nonprofit. But if you really are passionate about it, it can grow and there's money to be had. You just don't own the business.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, because like I said, I think that, that's kind of a gray area for a lot of people with not really understanding what the difference is. So that's really helpful.
Look at the Red Cross. They just got in trouble, not in trouble recently, but public outcry because the executive director was making, I think, $27 million a year as a salary or something crazy. And so they dropped it, I think, down to $17 million or something like that. I've got my numbers off, but there was something drastic. Poor thing is only getting $17 million now. But it's, my tax professional has been around for years and done all kinds of major corporate taxes. He said, with a nonprofit, the rule is that your executive staff can only be paid a reasonable amount of money, which is comparative to other nonprofits. And when you've got some of those biggies out there, they're paying, I think it's crazy the amount of money they pay. But it's just to show that, you don't have to make, $5,000 a year because you want to put your heart and soul into this nonprofit, although that might be the case for the first year or two when you grow something, but that's not, it doesn't mean no cash flow. A nonprofit doesn't mean no cash flow.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. And I'm just thinking that there is someone I just met yesterday, actually, who's starting a nonprofit for kids with reading, and she's so passionate, and she is having to, work a part-time job just to keep this, to get this business off the ground. So I'm going to make sure she gets a copy of this call.
Good.
Yeah, awesome. So now as you know, with us talking a few times before, that I speak a lot about the mindset portion of success. So how would you say that this has contributed to your success with the businesses you've built?
My wife is very realistic and down to earth, and she has kept me from floating into the stratosphere many times in our marriage. I would definitely have to say that my positive attitude and positive self-talk. And, you know, I'm looking up, I've got my little dream board or what, there's another word for that.
Vision board?
Your vision board, thank you. It's up here in my office, and yeah, I utilize all these positive inputs because my mindset has to be there. It does, you know, today I put a little post on Facebook because I was at a event where I was meeting with some government buyers, and it was like a business summit somewhere, and somebody walked up to me and goes, a complete stranger, you know, I know you. Oh, I saw your TV show yesterday, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know, I could get a big head, and then I could be driving in my car 20 minutes later and go, gosh, you know, I'm nobody. I'm not, you know, doing this yet and that yet. You know, you can choose with what you do, the influences that you have from other people, whether they be positive or whether they be negative. You've got to find a way to find something positive in everything. I honestly believe that. Even when somebody's critical towards you, you know, be thinking in a positive way. Well, I appreciate that they felt they knew me well enough to share that, even if I disagree with it, you know. So I think you got to turn everything into a positive, or at least have a positive outcome from a challenging situation.
Yeah, I love that. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned the positive self-talk, because I have noticed that, you know, with a lot of clients, that's where they'll kind of get caught up, is by going down that path of fear and doubt, and it really goes back to the thoughts that they're thinking about themselves. So is that
right.
something that you had to train yourself to do in terms of having that positive self-talk, or is that something that you've always had?
You know, I think it's something I've refined over the years. I remember incidences in my life where I kind of struggled through some stuff, but I have most of my life been pretty positive, even when everything else seems bleak. My dad told me something once when I was a young man. I don't think I was even married yet, but I was probably officially an adult, just barely. And he said, I think I had some bills that were due or something, or I didn't have the money and whatever, and I might have been freaking out. And he said, always look at it this way. They can't come to your house, to your front door, and knock on it and shoot and kill you because you can't pay this bill. You know, there is a way for you to work it out. And for some reason, that statement has, even just now in this interview, it's kind of come up in my head that is something that always, I have a little picture of my dad telling me that. I don't even have to think the whole thought. And I remember basically, what's the worst case scenario? And if you can look at the worst case scenario and go, okay, I could deal with that, then you can find a positive way out of it. You know, I mean, that seems kind of crazy, but look at what's the worst thing they're not going to come to your house and kill you if you know, didn't do this right at work, or, you know, you started something at the wrong time, or whatever. I've started businesses that were before their time and they went out of business, and then somebody else picked it up a few years later because I was ahead of schedule. But you think, what is the worst? What is the worst case scenario? And if the worst case scenario is you're going to have to go live at your brother's house or find a nice warm spot under a bridge for a while until you get your life together, is it really going to be rotten? I mean, are you going to find a way out of it? And if you can say, yeah, I'm going to make up my mind I can deal with that, then anything else that's better than that is better, and you're going to feel good about it.
So it's almost like you're letting go of the fear around it because you're shifting how you're looking at it.
Right. It's kind of like in a haunted house, you know. You know that they have rules. They can't touch you. You know, they can't, you know, poke you with something, or, you know, there's like certain rules. So if you can go, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to me in this haunted house? Well, you know, I might wet my pants, you know, I might get really scared. And is that going to ruin my life, you know? And if you can, get yourself to a point where you go, well, okay, even if the worst thing happens, I'm still going to be okay. Then anything that happens better than that, and I honestly don't focus on that low end. I really try to shoot high, but I do dip down there for a minute and go, okay, if I'm going into a real stressful situation, I'm thinking, what's the worst case scenario? And I go, can I do that? If that happens, can I deal with it? Yes. Okay, how would I deal with it? Or if I'm not sure, I'll work out the details and then say, okay, if I drop that low, I got a plan. All right, now let's go at the top. And we're going to try to make the best happen.
I love that. So then you're not staying in that stressed out place for very long. You dip down, you reframe how you're looking at it, and it enables you to get back up.
Yeah, it's kind of like, in my mind, and this is, Chris, you're really good because you're drawing this all out of me. I've actually never shared this stuff before. It's kind of coming to my realization as we're having this conversation. But it's like I just hurry up and I go build a safety net really quick, and then I go cross the high wire. And I know the safety net's down there. In other words, I've thought of the worst case scenario. I've thought of how I can get out of it, and I know I'm going to be okay.
That's awesome. Now, do you think that is what enables you to be so okay with change? You mentioned that at the beginning of the call, that you're really great at change, and you can just make the changes that you need to.
Yeah, I think it is. I really do. And this is like you're going to have to charge me for this session now because this is a self-realization going on here rather than an interview. But I actually think that's correct. I think I love change because I guess I feel some security in change because I like to build the safety net real quick, and even though I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, I move on and I try to go on the highest diving board or the highest, wire I'm going to walk across or whatever. But I just feel like whatever happens in between that and the safety net is going to be a success. And even the safety net's going to be a success because I built it. I got the contingency plan ready for the worst case scenario.
I love it. That's awesome. I hope everybody wrote that down. That's really good.
I might have to write it down. I wonder if I'm going to remember that.
We're going to have to go back and listen to this ourselves.
I'm going to replay this for myself. Yeah, it's like the secrets are coming out. You want the secrets? These are them. I'm just learning them myself.
Well, I'm sure everyone can tell this. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure everyone can tell this wasn't scripted.
You're right.
This is the real deal right here.
It's happening live.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So that's great for everyone listening and, for us to think about as well. So building that safety net, looking at the worst case scenario so that you can just keep going and keep doing what you want to do.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Be like your friend, that needs to take on several part-time jobs or something while she's starting this nonprofit. That's her backup, so she knows she's got something else going. That's, part of the process. So that's part of her safety net. She knows that she's going to get passionate with this thing, and she can't put full time into it, so she's got the part-time job and all that, and that's okay. That's part of the plan. You're still having success.
Yeah, that's right. And, that's a good point because I think a lot of people, when they start a business, think that they have to let go of the job and just go, cold turkey into starting a business, and that might not be the best way for them, and that's okay.
Yep, I agree with that. Unless you've got the funding there, because every business you try to do will always, and this is like a law of nature, it will always take twice as long to build it and cost twice as much as what you've planned, even if you were really detailed in your planning.
That's good. Can you say that again? I want to make sure everyone caught that.
Yes.
That was good.
It is. I say that it is a law of nature that any business or any project you get involved in, it's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much money as what you meticulously planned it to be. So you got to be ready for that.
Well, and that can be part of that safety net too.
It could be, yeah. It could be that I'm ready for that. And if it's only 1.5 times, then I'm okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You're
I
unraveling
like
my net. I mean, uncovering my net.
So tell us about some of the crashes then that you referred to earlier and what that looked like and what you learned from them.
Sure. There was a company I had that we were developing a database-driven software program that was an alert system. So, for instance, and unfortunately it still happens today, hence the failure, and I'll explain how that happened. But that company that I actually was on the Congressional Advisory Board for the emergency alert system was involved in it. We actually would set up like the 101st Airborne or, some Army unit. The way they do a recall, and unfortunately still today, is 5 people call 5 people who call 5 people, and then they call each other back and say who responded back. And, and they do use a little bit of texting and stuff, but it's still the 555 plan. And what we did is we came up with a system where regardless of what phone system somebody had with their cell phone or their home phone, we would allow a military unit or some other government agency or school for substitute teachers or whatever. They could notify everybody, and it would filter them. If somebody's on sick leave or vacation or something, it would notify them immediately that, hey, this is happening. They could reply back with a yes or a Y or an N or a something, and it would update the database. And, they could basically do a recall in an hour instead of what takes them now like 2 weeks. So, but the problem was, I don't know if you remember back when text messages first were coming out, they had subject lines. So just like an email. So you could put something in the subject line, and all of our programming was based on this subject line. And so we were trying to coordinate with with Sprint and Nextel and AT&T, and Verizon wasn't even around yet. They got it all later, bought out all these other companies, but they each wanted to, we came up with really cool stuff. And I know I'm getting off a little bit. I'll chase the squirrel really fast. In that meeting, we met with other companies, and we came up with a system that, like for 9/11, the fire department could have had these cones that had electronics in the cones, and they could have put it in all 4 corners of that building and sent a message immediately to every single cell phone in that building and notified everybody instantly what's going on. But because that area was so big, there were 5 zip codes within the Twin Towers.
Oh, wow.
That's how big that area is. And everybody has their own phone numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, we came up with all this plan, and the beginning of the demise was that each individual cell phone company came up with their own specific alert system that was proprietary only to them. So they didn't want anybody tapping into it from the outside. They wanted to be able to sell their own alert system for their own company. And the government can't really regulate that. So it wound up where we were kind of pushed out. And then when they got rid of the subject line and all our programming was gone, we didn't have a way of connecting back who it was responding and all that. That company had to close up. We tried, but everybody wanted to do their own thing and not work nice together. Even though it was about the safety of the public, they didn't care. It was all about profit.
Now, that brings up a good point. How did you know, or what enabled you to make the decision to close the company?
Interesting thought is that we weren't giving up. We were trying to find some other way to get in there and make it happen. And I think what happens is that one, the lesson, probably the biggest lesson I learned was that I think we didn't give up soon enough. That makes sense. All the writing was on the wall, and we were still trying to find a way to make it work. And we were trying all kinds of alternative things. And all we were doing was kind of spinning our wheels in the mud. So I think that, you need to know just like you need to, if there's of an employee of yours that needs to go, don't let them hang around. Let them go, in the same way with a company. If it's gotten to a point where you've really, gone through everything, your company is going downhill, then jump out. Have another plan, for some other company or some other something. And so that's probably a lesson to learn, is to really do your, all the stuff you learned in college, the SWOT analysis and all the, evaluation of your company. Look at those key indicators and see if something is ringing a bell that it's time to, hit the ejection seat and try to save what you can.
And it sounds like really not taking it personally, too. That
oh, yeah.
Not being so attached to it and knowing, look at you, you're a great example. You've gone on to create many more successful businesses.
Right. I think that's the key, is not taking it personal. It's, I had a moment with one of my companies I had to close down that I let everybody go. I was the last one left. And I actually I've got to put this in a book someday, but I actually stood in front of the bathroom mirror and looked at myself and said, okay, it's your turn. You're fired. And, it's kind of a surreal moment, but it is that learning experience that you're not going to take it personal. Firing yourself, you can't take it personal.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how did that experience and some of the other ones you mentioned, how did those experiences turn into sort of stepping stones to what you've been able to create more recently?
Well, what it does is, as you learn these lessons, I think they become little arrows in your quiver, so that when you do start, fighting the uphill battle of starting a new business, you start learning things like, I'm still a handshake guy, but I always follow it up with a written agreement. That is worded right, because, I have lost some major business because contracts weren't exactly laid out right. If your big supplier is in a small town and the contract says that everything has to be dealt with in that town for litigation, then you've got to remember, if they're a big fish in a small pond, they've got every attorney locked in on something for their company, and it would be a conflict of interest for any of them to work with you. So basically, it doesn't matter if you have a contract or not. That's something I learned with one of my deals. So, so now I'm aware of those things, and I try to listen and learn from other people too. But definitely the ones you remember are the ones you experience yourself, more so than listen to somebody at a seminar or even on a show like this. Some things if you experience them yourself, then they're real.
That is so true. You can hear it from someone, or you can try to teach it, and until they experience it or you experience it yourself, that's, you're not
right.
going to fully get it. It's the same with having kids. You can read all of the books you want, but you're not prepared until that baby comes.
No, that's true. That's funny. I was having the same thought in my head when you said that. So it's very, very true.
Oh, that's awesome. So let me see what else I wanted to ask you. I love that about the lessons learned with some of the businesses that didn't work out, which really, it sounds like it's not so much that they didn't work out, because they were helpful in making you a success today with the other businesses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, those are all just stepping stones, So, if you're climbing a ladder and one of the rungs on the ladder breaks, you've still got another foot on another rung. You shouldn't ever have both feet on the same rung, because you're going to fall. So you've always got should always have some other ideas, other future plans, so that in case a rung breaks, you got something else to grab onto, and maybe you do have to go get a job for a while you build up your other new thing. But that's all part of the strategic planning in your life. You're not going to start. There aren't a lot of Microsofts out there, and where somebody started something up and that became their business for life. Those are very rare. A lot of people have multiple businesses before they really hit their success.
I like that. And I like the analogy of the one foot on each rung of a ladder there, one on one. That goes back to the whole safety net.
Right. Yeah, we're really learning a lot from my subconscious mind here.
We really are. We're digging deep.
Yeah, it's like you and I are both interviewing this Dennis guy.
Yeah.
He's crawling out of the depths of knowledge there.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, and thanks for being so honest with sharing too. That makes a big difference for, helping everybody else who's listening in, for sure. So now, do you have a success routine or something that you would call, we've talked about some of them with the vision board and the positive self-talk and the safety net. Is there something that you do every day that helps you stay in that realm of success?
Well, most recently it's been exercise that's really helped me. And this is, again, we're digging deep again, but I became unhealthy for a long time, gained a lot of weight, and it was just an area of my life that I just accepted. Well, that's just the way it is. I don't have time for all that other stuff, like exercise and eating right. I'm going to just do what I got to do and put my success efforts, I thought, into business. But I am a changed guy. I just, as of yesterday or the day before yesterday, I'm officially 70 pounds lighter. And, it's been through a lot of dedication and hard work but I've applied a lot of the principles that I've applied to starting a business with, digging out the thin me inside of me, and I found that exercise is really helpful in keeping me alert, and I even monitor my sleep at night. I've got a little app I've been using for years on my phone called Sleep Cycle that I don't wake up when I'm in a deep sleep anymore. I give it a range of when I want to wake up instead of an exact time, and it won't wake me if I'm in a deep sleep. So I wake up every morning a little bit more refreshed because of when I wake up. And I think that's good to take control of your health and your physiological being, and it helps you to be more successful because you feel better. In fact, it was funny. I saw the manager of the gym that I go to. He said, I haven't seen you lately. I said, well, I've been here at like 5 and 6 a.m. You're not here yet. And I have always followed that for this last couple of years with, I'm here early in the morning and I'm not even a morning person. And Dean is his name, and Dean told me the other day, he says, I think it's about time that you woke up and realized that maybe now you are a morning person.
Okay, so first of all, 70 pounds, that's amazing. And I know
great.
I've been watching a little bit on, through social media with the transformation, and I can't believe that. That is such a huge change.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And it's, just like in life, you're asking about success things. And I'm going to use losing weight as an analogy to the success of your business too. Mm-hmm. Losing weight, there's little things that you look for, not just the scale. The scale is like one little tool. I've noticed that when I'm losing inches, I'm not losing pounds. When I'm losing pounds, I stay the same size. They don't correlate, so you can't just use one to say I'm making progress. The things I'm real proud of is I'm now wearing dress shoes that tie because I can tie them. I can get in and out of the car without, having to think how I'm going to shift my legs around, and I just jump in and out of it now. I was able to tie my shoes sitting in the car the other day. These are all things I could never do before, and these are my, in business terms, they call them your key indicators. They're things that you might not notice right away, but if you will measure things and see where you're at and look at those key indicators, then, I talk about in my book, too, growth even within your personal life. If you have teenagers and you're trying to have a better relationship with them or something, each time you do something with them, you should rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. and put some comments on there and record it somewhere so that you can look back just for you, to analyze and look back later and go, gosh, man, I could have done better with that. Otherwise, we're going to justify it and think, I'm doing okay. We've got to look at those little things to see if we're really progressing, not just use a judgmental, vague idea in our mind. We've really got to measure things and make it measurable.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I see that a lot with business owners being afraid to even look at the numbers, and not knowing where they're at. And that is so hard in order to create the results they want if they don't know where they're at. So
that's true.
That is such a big one. So you mentioned that with the weight transformation, or the health transformation, I should say, it wasn't just about the weight loss, that you had to dig deep and you followed some of the same principles as you did with building businesses. So what were some of those principles?
Well, the principles are, I was kind of alluding to it actually, is that you do need to set measurable goals. You've got to realize the individual steps that you have to take to get to something. So you have to have milestones. So, I wanted to get to the point where I could run a 5K race. I used to run 10K races when I was in my 20s, which was, weeks and weeks ago. And so I wanted to get at least to a 5K. So what do I need to get to a 5K? Well, I've got to be able to, not have to catch my breath when I'm walking upstairs. Okay, so what do I want then? What do I have to do to get to a point where I'm not having to catch my breath to walk upstairs? Well, I need to do some more endurance training stuff like spin class. And so, spin class winds up being related to running a 5K because I have these little milestones along the way. And I think it's good that we break things down so that we know why we're doing everything we're doing and have them be part of the big picture, not just, I'd like the big picture to come, so I guess I'll diet. I guess I'll exercise. You got to have a realistic goal that you can see.
Right. So just to recap then, so setting those measurable goals and then breaking it down from there and having those little milestones along the way that are part of that bigger goal.
Right. And that's part of the business too. I tell some of my business students that want to start a company. I've got one gal just last night. She was saying she wants to start a fashion advice. She wants to become a fashion advisor. And so I said, okay, so that means that now you might want to go to some fashion school. You might want to go be an intern for some other fashion folks and all that. You may think all you're doing is messing around in an area that you like, but really your education is a business expense because you're planning on starting a business later. If you have to take a job in a certain area because you later want to start a business, well, then that's a milestone. You don't think, well, I failed because I have to take a job instead of starting a business. Sometimes that's part of the path. So everything we do has to be tied to that end result. I talk a lot about, and I'll just go over this real quick, and I know you wanted to open up maybe for some questions and stuff too, but I think it's really important that we have a strong understanding of what our mission and vision statement is for our life, not for our company, but for our life. Like mine is that I want, and my wife and I want, to be able to be to a point in our life where companies can, that I've started can provide the income that I need so that she and I can go serve missions with our church for the rest of our lives. That's my real vision statement for my life. Now, to get there, it's going to take building some companies. And building companies are going to take others. You see what I'm saying? It's got to be part of that end result. And whatever your mission and vision statement is, when I do a presentation on this on the PowerPoint, I put up a picture of a water filter. And I say every decision we make has got to be put through that water filter. And that water filter is our mission and vision statement. We can do stuff because it sounds cool, but does it really fit your vision and mission statements? If it doesn't, then either leave it alone, throw it away, or if you're a great connector with other people and you think that idea would be great for somebody else, share it with them. You know, build a relationship of trust with somebody else because they like, wow, he cared enough to give me this bit of information. He's not doing it himself, you know. So we got to run every decision in our life through that filter, and I think that helps to keep us on track.
Yeah, I love that. And then it's also so much easier to say no to the things that aren't in alignment with that bigger vision.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Which is, you know, so hard for so many people.
Well, and see, the mission and vision statement become a third party unanimated object or inanimate object. Okay, it is a statement. So it's the statement basically that is allowing you to say no. So everybody has this problem with blame. They don't want to take the blame. Well, whose fault was it? He's touching me. It's his fault, you know. And we do that all through our lives. So if we can have something that's written down that we can use as the blaming factor, it won't hurt the mission statement's feelings if you say, I'm sorry, this doesn't fit with what I want to do. So being able to blame something that is inanimate is actually healthy, I think, because then you aren't feeling guilt that you're not doing it.
That's right. And I love that. It's not hurting the mission statement's feelings. That's perfect. That's good. So everyone on the call, do your mission statement if you haven't done that. Really connect to your bigger lifestyle. Why? Your bigger life goal is what I'm really taking away. I love that.
Right. What do you want to be doing when you're using a walker? that was my goal. Now I don't know. I'm getting in such good shape I might not ever need one, but
that's
that
right.
was my trigger.
You just ditched the walker, I think.
I'm thinking so. I might have to change that vision.
And I was going to ask you, so with the health transformation, has that affected your business and your success?
You know, it really has. It has. I've noticed that not only do I have more energy, I have more focus in my head because I'm eating well, but I also feel, and I don't know if it's just me noticing this, but you know, people have preconceived ideas of large people, you know, of short people, of whatever. You know, everybody's got their ideas in their head, and I feel like more people are taking me serious. That I look healthier. You know, I mean, for me to say, yeah, you know, reach your goals and talk about all this stuff, and not have my health goal something that is visible, I'm achieving it. You know, I just feel that it has allowed me to have more credibility with my audiences when I speak, and even maybe in some meetings I have, you know, when I'm building joint ventures and stuff like that.
That's so interesting, especially since you were already achieving such a great amount of success, and then to notice a difference like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. So, well, why don't we go ahead and open up the line in a minute here, and I'll just let everyone know if you want to ask a question, or even if you have clarification you want to get with anything that Denis has talked about during the call, then go ahead and hit *2 on the line to raise your hand, and it'll be a first come, first serve, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. And just before I open up the line, so just to recap then, what would you say the traits are that, you know, the mindset traits that you found to be the most important in creating that super success, as I like to call it, that level of super success?
I think it's the ability to very quickly jump from long-term vision to short-term, this is what I have to do in the next hour to get to that long-term vision. I think you have to be able to, you know, I guess beam yourself in time, you know, from the future to the present. And if you can get really good at that to the point where every time you're looking at what you have to do the next hour, you can still see your big goal, then I think you're there. I think that vision is really important. Not to dream on the long-term goal, because if you start dreaming, then everything you were supposed to do over the next hour has to get put to the hour after that. So it's got to, those two things have to connect. You know, you have to fold the fabric of time and let the future and the present touch so that they make sense together.
I love that. So it sounds like really having a balance between your long-term vision and, you know, the short-term goals that you need to get done every day.
Exactly.
Now, how do you, when you are doing those short-term goals, because that brings up an important point, how do you stay connected to your bigger vision?
Well, I do. I talk about it in my book, is having a 2-hour meeting with yourself every week. And that's where you can, gather all the stray ideas that you had during the week and everything else. And you go through and part of that process, and I suggest you use a written agenda. I actually give an agenda in the book. There's a link to the website. There's a Word document there you can download. But there are certain steps in making sure that when you're reviewing your tasks, so to speak, that you do run them through the filter and see, are these related to the long-term goals or not? So if you don't have that meeting with yourself, then all you're doing is allowing your brain to kind of mesh things around and see what comes to the top of the bucket, and that's what you work on.
Love it. So you're basically keeping it in your awareness throughout the day.
Correct.
As you're going through each task.
Right.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, let's see if there's any questions. I'm going to refresh the page. So star two on the phone if you want to ask Denis a question. And I see quite a few people here, so let's refresh.
Good. And if they don't, that's fine. We got other stuff to talk about in the next few minutes. But if you got a question, now's the time. I charge $5,000 to $10,000 a year for someone to spend an hour with me a month. So you got me right now for the next few minutes for free.
I love it. Yeah, you have been such a great wealth of knowledge on this call, and I'm so thankful that we were able to get you on today. That's awesome. So I'm not seeing any questions here, so I guess everyone's kind of reveling in all the information. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I suggest that you can get to know me and a lot of my friends by watching our TV show and our radio show. It's also on television. If you go to SMCEO, remember the name of my book is Saturday Morning CEO, so smceo.org, and there are links in there that will take you right to all the archives of all the old shows. We've had everybody from local business people to Zig Ziglar's son Tom has been on there. Some of the Osmonds have been on there talking about their success in their music business. We've had international speakers and gold medal winners, and so that's a good way to connect. If you want to actually connect with myself directly, if you wanted to ask me something individually, that's fine. You can reach me at Denis with one N, DENIS, at smceo.org. And those are probably the two best ways to reach me.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing your personal email, too.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. And follow me on Facebook. Everybody else does. And LinkedIn and all that stuff. So do a search for Denis Nurmela. I'm the only Denis Nurmela in the whole world. And it's spelled with one N, DENIS, and then NURMELA. So feel free to follow me or friend me if you like. I've got a few friend things still available. And same with LinkedIn. So, and you'll see a lot going on there. There's all kinds of pages on there, too, that you can link to from the smceo.org to the social media sites to follow the shows.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know I enjoy watching your transformation, and we both seem to be up at the same time, super early, doing our success routines. I'm usually studying while you're doing yoga or a spin class. So I love it. And I would definitely, recommend that everybody look you up through social media for sure. Well, before we sign off, do you have anything else that you want to add?
I think that we've kind of covered some good stuff, but I'll reemphasize, think twice about the kind of company you want to start. If you're starting a company because you think you can make a bunch of money with it, and it's not necessarily something you're passionate about, I'd say use caution. You're going to do better to have something that you're doing that you're passionate about, that you have figured a way to make money doing, rather than trying to become passionate about something that you really don't care a lot about. That is a key thing. And if that thing you're passionate about is in line with a nonprofit, don't let that scare you. Don't think that means you can't do it. There's, can I give a little secret here? Is that all right?
Yeah, this is
okay.
All about secrets.
Okay, good. So I've got these seminars I do for at-risk youth, and I said I was going to tell a quick story too. So I had a kid
right.
Yeah, a kid who very first time I put on one of these seminars, who was kind of being quiet, head leaned against the wall in the back, arms crossed, and I was going around the room finding out what kind of business experience people had, anything from a lemonade stand to selling chocolates at school or whatever. Got to this kid, and he said, well, I just got out of the big house, did 4.5 years. I was stealing cars and dealing crack and a few other drugs. I was unfamiliar with the names, and he said I had about 17 people, dealers that were working with me, and on and on. And then he looked at me like, so what are you going to do with that? Expecting me to go on to the next person. And I said to him without a blink, I said, okay, so you know how to build a team, you know how to market a product. And I said, you just have to learn how to do it within the law. I said, you have more experience here than anybody else. And he sat up. I'm going to get choked up a little bit, but he sat up in his chair, scooted up to the table. He paid attention, and he now runs his own car repair business. We uncovered during the seminar that he was passionate about cars and loved working on them. He just had to give them back, to the people that they belong to when he's done. And he's becoming successful as a business person. So he found out what he was passionate about, and it didn't matter that he had 3 felonies and couldn't get a job and all that. He got that light of hope in his eyes, and now that I know him better, I know that that's probably the first time that's ever happened in his life. So if you look in the mirror and see some light in your eyes about something that you're getting involved in, that's the right thing. You just got to figure out how to make cash flow happen with that.
I love that. What an amazing story. And talked about being able to see, the great traits in people. That's awesome. You really made a difference in someone's life.
It's really what I enjoy doing. And that's, I think, the secret.
Yeah, I love that. That is such truth. Go in the direction that you're passionate about and that you love, and the money will come, behind it. Will flow behind it.
It won't just follow on its own. Let's be clear about that. You still got to work really hard on getting donors and sponsors and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's still hard, but it's a lot easier if you love what you're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. And, that brings up a good point. I think that's a common misconception, that people think they don't have to work hard when it's their own business, and that they can take a bunch of time off. And really the reality is you still have to work hard, but it doesn't feel like work because you love it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I agree. That's probably the take-home message.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Denis, for being on today, and you shared such great information. And, I would really encourage the people that joined us a few minutes later than we started to go back and listen to the beginning as well, because there were some really powerful nuggets, all the way throughout this call. So thank you so much. That was really great, and I look forward to, sharing the recording with people and just getting your message out there. Yeah,
Chris,
that sounds good.
It's been an honor to spend this time with you and with your folks, and happy to do it anytime.
Oh, thank you. Well, you shared lots of great information, and I know this is making a difference and going to make a difference for everybody else who's listening to it. So thank you so much, and we hope to have you back on again.
Sounds great. Thanks. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day and have an awesome life.
Thanks. Bye for now, Dennis. Bye, everyone.
The moderator has left the conference.